So there's this girl I know, and she has like bulimia or anorexia or something. Like, that's so ridiculous how modern culture makes people act that way.
Wait, is she okay? Eating disorders are very serious.
Yeah, she's fine. She's seen a therapist and all, but it's crazy how she thinks she needs to be skinny because of the media and stuff.
Well, although there may be cultural influences like the media, genes can account for around 50 to 80% of the risk for eating disorders, as well as create neurobiological vulnerabilities. They also cause childhood premorbid behaviors like anxiety, harm avoidance, inflexibility, obsessionality, and perfectionism.
Whoa, that's crazy. I never realized that eating disorders were so serious and uncontrollable, but I still feel like it's a relatively recent issue. I mean, I've only heard of it recently, so isn't modern culture a bit to blame for this?
Actually, throughout history, there have been cases of abnormal eating behaviors like we see today in anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa. Physicians often noted that symptoms of anorexia, like self-starvation, were caused by religious fasting, overlooking weight concerns as causes until much later. Symptoms of bulimia, like vomiting to purge food, could have been considered forms of self-cleansing, as with ancient Egyptians, who voided their stomachs monthly. Up until 1873, the diagnoses anorexia nervosa did not exist, and bulimia nervosa not until 1979, because weight concerns first began to be noticed by physicians in the 19th century.
Oh, that's really interesting. Also, I've heard of anorexia and bulimia as being eating disorders, but are they different?
Yeah, anorexia is an intense fear of gaining weight and becoming fat, even if they are underweight or engage in persistent behaviors that prevent weight gain, like self-starvation. Bulimia does not show this intense fear of gaining weight, but will engage in binging and purging behavior. During a binge, one eats an abnormally large amount of food and exhibits a lack of control over their eating. Afterwards, purging is an inappropriate recurring compensatory behavior, like inducing self-vomiting, taking laxatives, engaging in excessive exercise, etc. Neurobiological studies have also shown that patients with eating disorders have dysfunctions in their ventral limbic, dorsal cognitive, and salience neural circuits. In a monetary choice task, anorectic and bulimic brains fail to differentiate between wins and losses in their limbic circuitry, suggesting higher sensitivity to both reward and punishment, and impaired ability to identify the rewarding or emotional significance of a stimulus. But AN and BN differ in cognitive circuitry. Anorectic brains show increased behavioral inhibition due to overactive cognitive circuitry, while bulimic brains show decreased inhibitory control. And did you know that anorexia and bulimia are not the only eating disorders?
They are?
Nope. Pica is a disorder involving persistent eating of non-nutritive, non-food substances for at least 1 month long and is inappropriate to the developmental level of the individual. Rumination disorder is a repeated regurgitation of food for at least 1 month and is most common in infancy. Avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, or RFID, is an eating or feeding disturbance where one fails to meet appropriate nutritional and energy needs associated with significant weight loss, significant nutritional deficiency, dependence on enteral feeding or oral nutritional supplements, or marked interference with psychosocial functioning. Binge eating disorder involves recurrent episodes of binge eating and the same loss of control in bulimia, but without the compensatory behavior. Other specified feeding or eating disorder accounts for more than 50% of all diagnosed eating disorders and can include atypical AN or purging disorder, among others.
So are all these diagnoses always cut and dry? Is it possible to have more than one?
Certainly, many individuals with an eating disorder do not have a pure diagnosis of AN or BN. It is more common for patients to change subtypes over time or for there to be a mixture of symptoms or to have psychiatric comorbidities like depression or an anxiety disorder.
So there's a lot of other eating disorders out there, and they don't all center around worrying about weight, right?
No, which is what people expect, and people commonly think that the typical person with an eating disorder is an emaciated white female in the middle to rich class.
That's true. Males can definitely have eating disorders too, though compensatory behaviors are more common in females.
Created using Powtoon.